I'm Asger, you can ask me anything. Today I'm answering this question. Is happiness the ultimate goal? Specifically, MTM3016 asked me, do we do the things we do because it might increase our happiness now or sometime in the future? Another way to phrase it, I guess, would be, is happiness the ultimate goal? Again, thank you for the question. Super tricky question. So first of all, it strikes me that there are a couple different ways I could understand this question. I could understand it from an evolutionary perspective, or I could understand it from a religious perspective. So let's try and answer this question from a sort of a utilitarian perspective, assuming that we have conscious control over our actions. So, is happiness the ultimate goal? Or maybe we could reframe it as, should happiness be the ultimate goal for us humans? So I think yes, but there's a major caveat here. And it has to do with what happiness is. What is happiness? I recently did a video where I tried to answer the question, is there meaning in life? You could check that out up here, because that sort of explains at least partially what we're talking about here. But I think it's really important to create a clear distinction between pleasure and a more general sense of happiness. I actually remember this party I went to a couple years back, and I ended up in a discussion with this guy. He was saying something like, we can't do anything but just to pursue pleasure. You can certainly have a feeling of happiness when you experience pleasure. This could be from a meal, this could be from sex, this could be from watching an exciting movie, this could be from having a deep conversation with a good friend, this could be from seeing a loved one that you haven't seen for a long time. There are many things that elicit these, just the feeling of feeling good. Let's just call that pleasure. But if that was really all there was to it, we could all just sit in our homes and order takeaway and watch porn 24/7, right? And then we would be happy. And that's probably what many people are doing right now due to the lockdown circumstances. But I just can't bring myself to equate that with happiness. I think it's two different things. And that's why I suggest you watch this video I did on meaning. So for me, pursuing activities that I experience as meaningful, that brings me a deeper sense of happiness. Whereas pursuing things that make me feel good or pleasurable things in the here and now, they can have a spillover effect on my overall feeling of happiness. I think that is true, but I do not want to equate those two things. I think they're two very different things. And I think you sort of allude to that in the way you frame the question. So I actually propose to frame it like this. I see one as a short-term concept ranging from seconds to days, and I see the other one as a long-term concept ranging from weeks to years. To an entire lifetime, essentially. And we could refer to the long-term version of this as a deeper satisfaction, or a deeper happiness, or a feeling of sense and a feeling of purpose. So yes, I think happiness is the ultimate goal, but it should be the deeper version of happiness. And I also just want to say this, as most of you will know by now, I think we can understand many aspects of human psychology looking to evolution, and maybe that's sort of the suspicion you had as well, MTM, when you asked this question. It's not reasonable to say that evolution has primed us, so to speak, to seek happiness in the deep sense. But it's obvious why people who really enjoy having sex and who seek out sexual pleasure, it's obvious why people with that tendency will have more offspring than would people who do not feel pleasure, immediate earthly pleasure, when they have sex or when they eat, that kind of stuff. And there are some good arguments, actually, like dopamine production in the brain. Many studies have shown since the late 80s, I believe, that people who have increased dopamine production tend to be more thrill-seeking, have more trait openness, personality trait openness, and they're typically also artists and entrepreneurs, typically also more on the left spectrum. But of course, all humans produce dopamine. And dopamine is something that can sort of lead us to the pursuit of pleasure. And this could feel like evolution or our biology or even some supernatural entity pushes us in the direction of pleasure seeking. But at the end of the day, we all know that, yeah, maybe it did feel good to have another dessert. But if you do it week after week, year after year, you'll end up obese. And same thing with sex, right? Sex feels great, right? But if you just have sex with any person you meet at any given time, you'll end up in many awkward situations. You'll likely catch a disease if you don't consciously protect yourself against that. There are just so many potential downsides. So it's really clear that there are some innate forces in us that push us towards pleasureful behavior, something that feels like happiness. But to me, as an observer of myself, as an observer of the observer, and as an observer of the observer of the observer, etc., it makes very little sense to just have this one happiness concept. We need to have at least two, and even that could be too simplistic. And again, far from all of our autopilot actions steer us in a direction of pleasure or happiness, many of them have to do with fear, right? Because it's important to be fearful. If we didn't have any capacity for feeling fear or anxiety, we would constantly bring ourselves in potentially lethal situations. So regardless of your philosophical framework for understanding the concept of happiness, I'd say happiness is to me the ultimate goal. But given the unique situations that we humans are in, being able to observe ourselves from adding numerous meta layers to this observation, there's really no reason why we shouldn't understand and accept that the pursuit of a deeper happiness, perhaps even the pursuit of meaning, requires some sacrifices of that which on a surface level feels as the pursuit of happiness. So just to sum up, our standard MO, so to speak, only helps us finding short-term happiness, pleasure. And that's far from the only thing it does. But in some domains, that is the case. But a deeper, long-term satisfaction or happiness can only be achieved by conscious planning and deliberate effort. Or so I'm inclined to believe, at least. And please share your comments in the below. I realize that I often leave out things when I record these videos. Also, some of these topics will be made into longer podcast episodes over on MetaQuest, so it's really helpful to me to have more than just my own perspective on these things. If you found value in this video, please subscribe. It doesn't cost you anything, and you'll see me again tomorrow. Thanks for watching. Have a good one. Cheers.